부산영어방송.
The time is now 7 o'clock.
You know, I think we've all had those moments back in school when you thought to yourself, when am I ever going to use this in real life? You've thought that. I thought that too. Well, your younger selves may not have been wrong, as about 65% of adults received the proper level of training required for their job. What's more, though, an average South Korean adult's language, numbers, and adaptive problem-solving skills fell below the OECD average. So I don't know about this. We have one of the world's most competitive academic environments. But when did we start to falter as adults? That is a question. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Thursday, December 12th on BEFM 부산영어방송. Good morning, Wavers. I hope you slept well. You're doing well. It's time to get started. You know, this is a time of year where, rankings, grades, and all that, as CSAT takers, they are kind of figuring out which schools to apply to, and then the middle and high school students are taking the final exams of the season. That is kind of the time season right now. But what about our academic levels after we get our diplomas, whether it's, out of high school or college or university? What so-called adulting skills are there? And are we meeting those standards? For that, we looked at this OECD data on assessment and analysis of adult skills, or the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, PIAAC. This survey measures adults' proficiency in key information processing skills. So we're talking about things like literacy. That means, ability to read, numeracy, and problem solving. So we're talking about 언어 능력, 수리력, and 문제 해결력. So experts say that these skills that I just said, they are needed for individuals to participate in society and for economies to prosper. So in the survey of 31 nations, South Korean adults actually scored lower than the OECD average in all three fields. That was surprising to me. In particular, our literacy skills actually dropped by 24 points from 10 years ago. 24 points. What's interesting is that if we look at the young adult group of 16 to 24-year-olds, their skills actually were slightly over the OECD average, which is certainly a statement into how we age, how we get older. On top of this, over 30% of adults were overqualified in terms of their education levels for their jobs. So it seems that as a country, we are very well educated, but even overqualified for the job market. But in terms of some real life skills like literacy, numeracy, and information processing, we may have some work to do. So that's what we're talking about today. Let's get to our text topic. It is very much related. We learn so many things in school, some of which we remember, we use in daily life. Some we just don't remember at all. So what things do you remember being good at while in school, but you no longer know how to do? So think about that. 자, 학교 다닐 때 배웠는데 분명히 배웠잖아요. 근데 그때는 너무 잘했어요. 근데 지금은 하나도 생각 안 나는, 기억이 안 나는 것은 뭘까요? For example, I'm going to give you some examples. How about the periodic table? Chemistry. We had to memorize that. 이거 주기율표라고 하죠. 이거 외우지 않았어요. 근데 지금 생각하면 sometimes I have to go back and I'm always looking at the top, my eyes roll up because I'm thinking like, what was that? Like, what is that? Carbon, seat, like all the basics I remember, but towards the end of the table, I just don't remember. What about trigonometry? In Korean, what is it? 삼각함수? Trig. Is it even useful? Maybe if you're an engineer. I'm sure it is, but in my daily life, is it really? I have a personal one. Memorizing, we were given a blank map and we were forced to memorize every single state name, the spelling, plus the capital. And so our teacher, our social studies teacher, 그냥 지도를 아무것도 그려져 있지 않는 미국 지도를 주고 이 주 이름 그리고 수도 그냥 이름만 적는 게 아니라 어디 위치까지 점을 찍어서 we had to write it down. So I remember that. I definitely got an A+ on that. And now sometimes I have to think twice when I think about the capitals of those states. So those are the things we're talking about. Send them into BEFM's live stream, live chat on YouTube. So go to YouTube, search for BEFM or 부산영어방송, and you can subscribe, log in, and you can also chat away with our other waivers. Pound 9050, shop 9050, that is on your phone. That's going to cost you 101 if you send in your message that way. Also, you can reach me for free on Kakao Talk. Same thing there. Search for BEFM or 부산영어방송. All right, so let's talk about the ways you can listen to us. 90.5, 103.3 FM. That's on the radio dial if you're in the Busan area. Like I said, we are streaming live right now on YouTube. You can watch at your leisure. We are also available on two apps, the Patbang app and also our own BEFM app, which you can download both for free. Very easy to use. And, oh my gosh, my producer's testing me already. She's like, what's the capital of Texas? Austin. I remember that one. I think it's Austin, is it not? Okay, yes, it's Austin. Not Dallas, it's Austin. So looking ahead to our lineup, we have Kentucky. Is it Louisville? I don't know. She's like testing me. She's like testing me right now. We have Chris coming in for Beyond the Headlines and Stephanie with City Insights. And then for a special interview, we have... we're covering the heavy story that we have been covering for days on end. This idea of a self-coup. Many experts are calling what happened a self-coup. What exactly is this? Is this what went down? So let's talk about this case in particular, what's happening in Korea with our expert. That's coming up in hour number 2. I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:07. These are today's headlines. Police failed to raid presidential office and receive limited documents. The police attempted to conduct a search and seizure of the presidential office yesterday, but the Presidential Security Service refused to cooperate with the investigation into President Yoon Suk Yeol's alleged insurrection. Prime Minister apologizes over martial law turmoil at National Assembly. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and cabinet ministers apologized yesterday over President Yoon Suk Yeol's declaration of martial law and admitted to procedural errors in the cabinet meeting held before the declaration. Korean Air and Asiana form mega carrier as a wrap-up merger. Korean Air and Asiana Airlines are set to finalize their long-awaited merger today, after approval from competition authorities in all 13 countries and the European Union. Unionized railway workers to return to work. Korea Railroad Corporation, known as KORAIL, and its unionized workers reached a tentative wage deal yesterday, ending the strike that has lasted nearly a week. Syria rebels turned tomb of Bashar al-Assad's father. So Syrian rebel fighters have destroyed the mausoleum of late President Hafez al-Assad, father of ousted President Bashar al-Assad following the regime's collapse after 50 years. And these are today's headlines. It is now time for Busan Updates. We have Sue in the studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, so I stand corrected. See, I told you I memorized all of the capitals when I was younger. It's not Louisville, it's Frankfort, Kentucky. That goes to show you exactly what we're talking about. Things that you memorize when you're younger and you think you know, and you get older and you forget. So Sue, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Is there something that you were really good at when you were in school, but now you're kind of like, I don't really remember any of that?
Yeah, I don't really remember any Chinese characters at all.
Ah, 한자.
Yes.
Oh.
So I was really good at scoring the test, but I forgot everything.
Oh, no.
Right after the test, actually.
Right after the test.
I'm so embarrassed.
Oh, no. But I think that maybe our listeners can commiserate. They can really feel the pain, the same pain of like memorizing over and over like these hanja. And they're difficult to remember, even the strokes of how they go.
Yes.
And the meaning. Mm-hmm. And then after a major exam, you're like, out the window, right? Yes. All right, we're going to dive into our first Busan update. This is regarding Busan City anticipating the medical service gap to worsen next year. So this is quite serious.
Yes. So because of the martial law last week, so according to the command, all medical professionals, including residents and those in strikes or who had left their posts to return to work within 48 hours and resume their duties. So the decree further warned that the violations would result in punishment under martial law provisions.
Yes.
So this proclamation caused a strong backlash from the medical community because it contained the term punishment, 처단. So healthcare workers and associations argue that such language not only undermines their professional autonomy, but also escalates tensions unnecessarily.
I see. And so how has this affected the recruiting process?
Right. So 2 days ago, it was reported that the major training hospitals in Busan are experiencing really low application rates for first-year residency positions for the first half of next year.
So as we kind of think about this, because this is going to affect all of our, our health care, actually, let's look at some of the results of the application rate. So we need further information.
Yes. According to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, 보건복지부, residency programs across the whole country are experiencing alarmingly low application rates. So out of the 3,594 first-year resident positions available nationwide, only 314 applications were submitted. So this is just rate of like 8.7%.
Okay, so do we have like specifics according to hospital?
Yes. So the shortage in applications for medical positions in Busan hospitals is even stark. So for example, Busan University Hospital, only one applicant for 75 positions. And Yangsan Busan National University, 1 for 64. And Dongha University Hospital, 2 for 45. Busan Medical Center, there was no one for 9 positions.
Wow, that goes to show you. So anything else that was said?
Yes, so and also Busan National University School of Medicine issued a public declaration, 시국선언, strongly condemning the government.
Yes.
And because of the recent tensions between the government and the medical community, this conflict is expected to further impact the recruitment of medical residents of the first half of next year, and it will worsen the existing healthcare workforce shortages and intensify the strain on medical services.
Yes. So that's the status of what's going on in the medical field here in Busan especially. We're going to move on, though, and talk about some positive signs about the employment rate in Busan. We need some positive news.
Yes. So the employment rate in Busan, 고용률, has been showing stability with the region maintaining a rate of around 58% for the past 6 months. So according to the data released by the Southeast Statistical Office, 동남통계청, last year in November, Busan's employment rate reached 58.2%, and this year 0.7 percentage point increased.
Yes.
And additionally, the number of employed individuals in the city grew by 13,000, 13,000명, and the total number is 1.696 million, 196만 6천 명 중에서요. So this represents a 0.8% increase compared to November 2022, 2 years ago.
Yes. So that's definitely a positive sign. So we're grateful for this. Well, let's move on to talk about a particular district here in Busan, Saha district, where I hear that they've been working on this whole 소개팅 사업 or matchmaking initiative. Brings a smile to all our faces this morning, I'm sure.
Yes. So last year, Saha District announced that they would make a matchmaking program that includes both domestic and foreign singles to address declining birth rates. So this brought quite the attention because the district has the highest number of marriage migrants, 결혼 이주민, in Busan. So the initiative highlights the district's role as a cultural and social bridge for diverse communities.
I see. Well, let's get into the specifics.
Yes. So the project is called 두근두근 사하 Bridge 사업. So the district has requested a budget of 1.2 million won, 1억 2천만 원 for the upcoming year. So if the budget is approved by the council, Saha plans to host this matchmaking event 6 times a year starting next year.
Wow, 6 times a year.
Yes.
Let's talk about who is eligible for this project.
Right. The project will allow up to 30 participants per session, 15 men and 15 women.
Okay.
So, but they have to be working or residing in Saha.
I see. Okay, working or living in Saha. Got it.
While the exact age range for participants isn't specified, the program will primarily target people in their 20s and 30s.
Okay.
And during the trial run, 시범 운영 of the matchmaking event, much more interest was shown than anticipated.
Okay.
So this included dinner and one-on-one dates. And in the end, there were 8 couples.
Okay.
And 5 of them are still continuing their relationships.
Really? That's interesting information. Okay. So in addition to this 두근두근 Saha Bridge matchmaking program, I hear that Saha District is planning a new initiative. So this is the 두근두근 Saha Bridge Support Fund.
Yes, we need funds to get going. Once people are confirmed as couple or they're planning their marriage, the program plans to provide costs for dating expenses,
Yes.
데이트 비용, and meeting expense, 상견례 비용, and wedding celebration grant, 결혼 축하금, cultural and artistic support, 문화예술 지원금, and even housing support, 주거비.
Ooh, so this is very, enticing. However, I hear that there are also some concerns over these projects.
Yes, during the pilot phase of the program, the female participation rate was really low. And also some are worried that the program might attract people looking to exploit the financial support.
Yes.
So it will be challenging to distinguish between genuine couples and those seeking just financial gain.
Oh, it's kind of sad to think about. We're talking about matchmaking and possibly love, but at the same time, the reality of certain people. Anyhow, thank you for related that news. But in news related to kind of this also, the marriage department, nearly 69% of newlywed couples in Busan have accumulated debt exceeding 100 billion won or 1억 won, right?
Yes. So newlywed couples in Busan, 신혼부부 in Busan are facing financial challenges. So with 90% of these couples have huge amounts of loans. So many couples are taking out loans from banks and other financial institutions to cover the high cost of purchasing homes. So it has become a common challenge for young people. The statistics does not include loans from private lenders, such as rental deposits and other informal sources like loan sharks, 고리 대금업자, and credit agencies, 신용조사기관.
Okay.
So if these loans are counted, the overall debt burden for newlyweds is likely to be much higher.
I see. Well, what are the income levels of these newlyweds?
Right. So last year, the average annual income of newlywed couples in Busan was 65.48 million won, 6,548만 won.
Okay.
And that is lower than the national average of 68.34 million won, 6,834만 won. So this income level is far behind Seoul. In Seoul, newlywed couples earned an average of 87.1 million won, 8,710만 won.
I see.
So 24.2% of the couples had an annual income less than 30 million won, 3천만 won.
Well, we can definitely see and hear about the income disparity between Busan and, of course, those in the Seoul area. So thanks for covering this one. All right, lastly, we hear that the Busan Global Village is currently recruiting for its second cohort of the early childhood teacher or English teacher training program. This is operated by Busan City, correct?
Yes, and the program is called in Korean 들락날락 영어랑 놀자. So it will provide training for both local 내국인 and international instructors 외국인, each 15 people who will teach English to preschool children. So the program focuses on customized English teaching methods for young learners and use an experiential hands-on approach to learning.
Yes.
So through the practical techniques of Busan, teaching techniques of Busan Global Village, the program will prepare educators with the skills to provide engaging and effective English instruction tailored to the needs of young children. So the application period is from December 10th to December 20th.
Okay.
So for further details or to apply, please visit the Busan Global Village website for more information on the application process and requirements.
All right. Hopefully this will benefit the little ones. Thank you so much for all the Busan updates. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
And now I'll be back in just a moment. Oh, the weather. Did I get the weather? Okay, it's time for the weather. So here it is. It's time for your traffic and weather report. There is congestion on the Dongso overpass from Hwangyong ramp to the old Gaegeum tollgate. Also, it looks backed up on Jungwangdaero from Sojangcheon intersection to Bugok intersection. Looking slow also on Gayadaero from Gaegeum intersection to Jure intersection. As for the weather, it's currently 2 degrees Celsius under partially cloudy skies. The daytime high will go up to 11 degrees Celsius, similar to yesterday. There is a dry weather special alert in place over Busan. Looking across the nation, freezing or below freezing temperatures across most of the country, with strong winds bringing down the real field temperatures even further. And rain and snow forecast for Ulleungdo and Dokdo Islands. This was your traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
Time for News Digest. We have Haley in the studio. Good morning. Hey, so let's talk about our text topic, things that we learned in school. And like I already forgot, it's Frankfurt, not Louisville, Kentucky.
And I'm sitting here like
example.
Germany? No, that's which is not even. But yeah.
Yeah, so
So I was sitting outside making a list, and that list just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yes.
I have a giant gaping hole in my knowledge, and that is also Chinese characters, Hanja. And yeah, I'm like, I can write to like 1, 2, 3. And then I'm like, what's 4? And then math, I went to this like museum with my nephew over the summer, and they were doing like basic, like 5th grade, 6th grade, 4th grade level quizzes. And I was like, how do you divide fractions?
Oh.
You flip. I was like, if you flip
and multiply?
the second one and then multiply, right? So I was like, I had to get real deep into my brain. Yeah, but then I was like, what's the quadratic formula? 근의 공식? Anybody remember that?
Pain. Oh, sorry.
It's like x equals negative b plus or minus square root of. Do I remember this?
I don't.
B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Tommy, correct me. Tommy, fact check.
I know.
Yeah.
You know Tommy's going to fact check all of us. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. There are so many things. Oh, painful
that we
memories
don't
now.
remember.
All right. Let's go to our top story. Obviously, the martial law insurrection investigation has reached, or actually nearly reached, the presidential office.
Well, it's right there. And as you said in news highlights or headlines, it was literally right at the door with a police raid, but then they were never able to get in. But let's really look at the course of the investigation.
Yes.
So with former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, he is currently under arrest. The notorious investigation over this martial law situation, it's really right there in front of the presidential office. And actually, the arrest warrant approval for Kim Yong-hyun was quite important and symbolic because this is the first decision by the courts ruling that the emergency martial law declaration from December 3rd could fall under insurrection or treason charges. Once again, that's 내란.
Yes.
The court also approved the prosecution's rights to investigate these charges, and that gives the prosecution authority to investigate top figures within the military and the police. And with statements coming from top military generals, as we've covered yesterday, about calls that they allegedly received from the president, where the president apparently allegedly told them to even break down the doors to the National Assembly and drag out the lawmakers if necessary, then there are possibilities being mentioned about raids, and well, that happened yesterday or attempted to, but perhaps even arrests made within officials in the presidential office.
Indeed. Well, we need to know more about the treason or insurrection charges themselves.
Right. So insurrection or treason is one of the heaviest crimes under the Constitution.
Yes.
The only punishments are actually death, life sentence, or life imprisonment. 사형, 무기징역, or 무기금고.
Okay.
And these are the only crimes where the sitting president, the current president, is not exempt, does not have immunity from being charged while in office.
Indeed. And so we're finding out more about what unfolded on that night, that fateful night where martial law was declared, right?
Right. So with the top military officials, they went into emergency questioning the day before. And yesterday, the parliament held emergency questioning of top cabinet members, including the prime minister. So there we found out more about actually what happened before Yoon went on television and declared martial law.
Yes.
So Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and cabinet ministers gave testimony, and the meeting, apparently, the cabinet meeting took place at 10:17 p.m. on the night of martial law declaration for about 5 minutes. And we are parsing into the minutes because that is the timeline that we're working with.
Yes.
And this took place at the presidential office, once again, December 3rd. By the way, to give you a better idea, President Yoon Suk Yeol went on television and declared martial law right at about 10:25. So we're looking at 10:17, the meeting began. 10:25 to 10:30, martial law was declared.
Yes.
The prime minister asked for himself. He says that he became aware of the plans around 8:40 that night, told the president that he opposed martial law, and convened a cabinet meeting to try to convince the president to act otherwise. It apparently took hours for the necessary cabinet ministers to come to the presidential office and to meet quorum, to meet the number of people required to begin a meeting. The meeting is a loose term, it seems, and that was basically what the ministers conveyed yesterday. There were no minutes, no records taken. There were no calls to begin or end the meeting, so it was very informal.
Yes.
So the minister said that it didn't really seem like a cabinet meeting in terms of how it was held. But in terms of what they discussed, Prime Minister Han said that every cabinet minister there opposed to martial law. However, only 2 actually explicitly told the president that they are against the plans. And these were the economy minister Choi Sang-mok and the foreign minister Cho Tae-yeol. And then the agriculture minister testified that President Yoon was at the meeting, but only for about 2 to 3 minutes. And this was the first thing out of his mouth when he began the meeting was, I didn't discuss this with anyone.
That's what he said.
That
allegedly.
could actually allegedly, and that could have legal implications as to who else is involved in this. The minister said that they do admit to the ineptitude and the inability in stopping martial law, but that they themselves are not co-conspirators, 동조자, to this insurrection or martial law.
Important distinction.
Right,
though.
right.
Yes. Are we seeing any movement from the president?
Not since his very short 2-minute apology on Saturday. Reports do quote a ruling party member that most of the senior aides at the presidential office, they've not had contact with him since then. And it's been also reported that the president is in the process of forming his own legal team to defend him in the upcoming charges if they are pressed. This reportedly includes the former head of the KCC, Korea Communications Commission, Kim Hong-il, who, like the president, was a prosecutor. Others include an attorney who also worked in the presidential legal office, who was one of the legal counsels for First Lady Kim Gun-hee's luxury bag case.
In the meantime, some people are calling for a recall vote in their their area, for their elected representative. So can you give us some insight into this recall? So it's called the 주민소환제 system. Is that correct?
Right. So this has been kind of the often searched for words in the recent days or week to recall, to kind of cancel their elected representatives legally following their failure to vote in the impeachment motion.
Okay.
But what is this and how does it work? So 주민소환제 is what's called a resident recall. And this is when you hold a vote to remove elected officials from office. However, this 주민소환제 system is only for the local council, the city or district heads or council members, 자치단체장 or 의원. So 국회의원, the National Assembly representatives, you cannot recall them, at least under the current system.
Has this ever succeeded, though? I'm curious.
Very rarely, and we're talking about two. Yes,
literally
two, since the system was implemented back in 2007. Because number one, in order to even have a recall vote, you need signatures from 15% of the residents in that region to sign a petition. And this is where pretty much most of the attempts fail because you need to sign that with your name, address, and phone number. So people feel quite pressured. So only about 11% of the recall petitions go to the vote. And for the vote, you actually need a fairly high voter turnout and 1/3 of the residents in that area. So that really never happens except for, once again, 2 cases.
Yes.
However, others do call for a recall system into the National Assembly members to really raise the accountability, to demand more accountability into their elected representatives.
Okay, well, thanks for reporting extensively on what's happening on the political front. For our next story, we're going to go to the U.S. More politics. President-elect Donald Trump promised that he will actually look into minimizing or getting rid of this whole birthright citizenship. And reports say that he is looking into this seriously. So let's go into the logistics.
So he's always said this ever since Trump's first administration, now during the transition period. So a little bit of a background. This is a system. In the U.S., if you are born there, regardless of what the nationality of your parents are, you immediately get U.S. citizenship.
Yes.
This in South Korea, it's kind of led to this 원정출산 phenomenon of Korean mothers going to the U.S. and giving birth there. Because in Korea, there's that added layer of, well, if you give birth to a boy and he has U.S. citizenship, he doesn't have to serve in the South Korean military. For the states and for Trump himself, this has been more of a problem of undocumented immigrants living in the U.S., giving birth. And then 18 years later, the parents can also get citizenship via their adult children.
I see.
So apparently the Trump transition team is drafting different versions of executive orders, 행정명령, to withdraw or at least restrict this birthright citizenship.
Okay, so how would they actually go about doing this? Because, I mean, I don't know, there's so many logistics, are there not?
Right, so because this is actually kind of written into the Constitution via the amendments, which I also used to remember all of them, but now I don't. In any case, the Trump administration could stop issuing passports to the children of undocumented immigrants to at least kind of bring a legal slowdown of the cases.
Okay.
And then in addition, the Trump team might step up this expedited removal or deportation of undocumented immigrants across the country without a court hearing.
Yes.
And for reference, back in 2020, when Trump was the president, he did try to restrict visas for pregnant women entering the United States for what some people called the birth tourism.
Well, you know, many countries around the world, they actually don't institute this birthright citizenship. Why does this U.S. have this system in the first place?
This is a very interesting history lesson. Slavery.
Oh.
Yeah, it goes back. So there's this, once again, another thing that we learned, the very infamous, what some people call one of the most horrible decisions by the U.S. Supreme Court. It's called the Dred Scott decision back in 1857, where basically the court ruled that if you are a child or children of a slave, you're not a U.S. citizen. And they've been, of course, living there because their ancestors were dragged out of their homeland. So that decision was undone by the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. And then the 14th Amendment said everyone born in the U.S. is a citizen. And they're protected by the Constitution. So if Trump does try to really get to the fundamentals and remove this birthright citizenship, there's a heavy, complicated legal battle going all the way to the Constitution.
Wow, so much to look forward to in the coming months as we kind of navigate the new president coming into the United States. Thank you for all the news. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
Well, let's get to you, the listeners, and your responses for some of the text topic we asked you today. Basically, what things were you really good at school? And then after school, like you graduated and you're like, what was that? I don't remember. So what about this? Benny, who says, I think of solving basic math problems, but I can still do this, but I no longer, can for like geometry and chemistry. So, the higher up you get in terms of science and math, it becomes more challenging. I do agree. And then Leslie mentioned how it's like she used to be good at diagramming sentences, dissecting them, and she used to be good at remembering important historical dates. I'm so bad at that now, she says, but I used to be, yes, as I said, great at diagramming sentences and could tell you the part of speech a certain word was. I remember doing that too. Ask me now, I have to think twice. Well, we're going to get to Kat's pick for today. I wish I could report on some happy-go-lucky story today, not so, because yesterday we talked about what's happening in Syria after the downfall of the Assad regime, but I want to focus more on something we did talk about, the prisoners in Syria. So here is a clip from NBC News.
Thousands of Syrians today came to the Saydnaya prison outside Damascus to search for missing relatives. This is where the brutal regime of dictator Bashar al-Assad sent those who dared oppose him to disappear. A man held handfuls of nooses he found made of cheap nylon cord. Some were freshly used and still bloody. What did we do to deserve this, he asked. Amnesty International dubbed Saydnaya a human slaughterhouse. And now that Assad is gone, Syrians and the world can see the cruelty of his regime.
They're describing this as a human press, a torture device that prisoners like this man is demonstrating here would be put on this slab and then crushed in order to torture them.
In another torture room, Amal showed me a photo of her son Milad, missing for more than 10 years. He was sentenced for being a militant My son was a nurse, she says. The squalid cells are now empty, broken open by the rebels Monday when hundreds of prisoners were freed. But families believe, or want to believe, their relatives may still be hidden in here. They broke holes in the walls, searching for secret rooms and basements. They didn't find any. Instead, they found paperwork.
All over here, there are documents. It seems like this place was abandoned in a hurry. And if you come in here, you can see with flashlights, everyone is just searching for any evidence that their loved ones may have been here, may have been executed here.
This woman says her son was taken here in 2013 and never seen again. I'm looking for evidence to give me hope he's still alive, she says. On their hands and knees, Syrians today searched for signs of life, poring over logbooks and records. So many names, so many tragedies. Syria's blackest site finally exposed.
A Syrian human rights group says that most of this country's 100,000 missing prisoners are likely dead.
So as you heard in that clip, yes, the regime has fallen, but the aftermath of this, the effects upon all the families who were devastated by years of civil war, well, it's still continuing. And when I hear about like family members looking for their loved ones that might probably have died in those prisons, it's really disheartening to hear. Anyhow, this was Cat's Pick for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
We have Chris dancing in the studio for you.
It's a beautiful morning today. So
Is it?
Yeah,
it is. Yes, I see the sun peeking out. And I need to ask you a text topic.
Yes,
Something that you were good at when you were in school, but not so good at now.
Well, I remember being fairly good at chemistry.
Oh, chemistry.
But now if you ask me, I wouldn't even be able to tell you what a mole was versus like how to balance an equation. I cannot do it anymore.
Oh. Everything that you guys are mentioning, like I'm going back in like time, thinking about, this class and that class and like, oh my goodness. I thought of something else that I was good at when, in the States, and they have it in Korea too, I'm sure, that, your PE, like physical examination tests. And everybody would strive so hard to, the endurance test, like running, like how many laps you can run.
How many push-ups you can do.
Push-ups and all
sit-ups,
that. Yeah. Not good at that now. So that's another one bites the dust. Well, let's talk about what you've brought for us today.
Yeah, well, question for you.
Yes.
Question for our listeners too. I know that you're not one to brag. You're a pretty humble person. But I do want to know, what is the fanciest meal you've ever eaten?
The fanciest meal. Okay. Well, I have one in mind. Went to a Wolfgang Puck restaurant. The man himself was there. I won't give the name of the restaurant because, I don't want to advertise a restaurant. So, and I went there for a 13-course meal.
That's a
13-course meal.
That's a few courses, yeah.
It took me 3 hours.
Wow.
That was
13
fancy.
courses, yeah,
I still remember it.
It sounds amazing.
I was meeting my mother-in-law for the first time.
That's why. It's very important.
That was a torturous 3 hours. Not because of my mother-in-law, because the food was coming out so slow, and I had to sit like this.
And I bet they were small portions as well.
Yeah, and it just took forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is... But she purposely chose a restaurant to see how I would do under pressure.
Under extreme pressure.
Yeah.
Well, for me...
here I am.
For me, it's a toss-up between. There's one place I went to in Las Vegas. There's this amazing sushi restaurant. For the life of me, I cannot remember the name of it, so I couldn't even advertise it if I wanted to. But
you can't remember.
I can't remember it, but it was amazing. And I do remember the prices were nosebleedingly high, but the food was amazing. And the other one was at a now closed restaurant, closed hotel in Hyundai. It was a Valentine's Day food feast.
Romantic.
And that was the single most expensive meal I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
It was really that expensive.
It was really expensive. And I've been lucky in Busan that Busan has some really fancy food. And it's a culinarily diverse city. But have you ever eaten at a place so exclusive that no amount of money could get you in?
No.
No,
I haven't.
That's the dream.
Okay.
I've never had that opportunity either, but I'm not sure I want to because it's a lot of pressure. These types of dinners are usually reserved for diplomats or government functions.
Yes.
But there's one dinner that happened on Tuesday.
What happened?
That isn't a official state dinner, but is one of the most exclusive banquets in the world.
Ooh.
And this year's banquet had one of the most news-making Koreans attending it. And I'm talking about Hong Kong attending the Nobel Prize banquet, which is held on December 10th.
Hangang, the writer. First, I thought you said Hong Kong. I'm like, who's Hong Kong?
Sorry, my pronunciation. Hangang.
그쵸, PD님도 그렇게 들으셔. I was like, who's Hong Kong?
But yeah, this banquet is held every year on December 10th in the Blue Hall of Stockholm City after the Nobel Prize ceremony.
Yes, so I am now very fully invested. I want to know because it looked really extravagant, and you know, we have the Swedish royal family there. So what happens at these dinners?
Well, the dinner itself is full of these Swedish dignitaries and notable people from around the world.
Yes.
And receives some amount of press coverage. And this is because of the speeches that each laureate gives at the end during the ceremony, after two ceremonial toasts, during the 4-hour-long dinner. Now, you said 3 hours. This one's a little bit longer. If there's time, I'll give a dramatic reading of part of her address that she gave at the banquet.
Okay.
The dinner is part of the prize reception day where the Nobel laureates accept their awards. And I was actually really impressed by the speech that Ellen Mattsson, a Swedish writer, and part of the Nobel Prize Committee for Literature of 2024 gave presenting her award. She said that two colors meet in Hong Kong's writing, white and red. The white is the snow that falls in so many of her books, drawing a protective curtain between the narrator and the world. But white is also the color of sorrow and death.
Yes.
Red stands for life, but also for pain, blood, the deep cuts of a knife. And Professor Astrid Winding, chair of the board of the Nobel Foundation, said the work was a profound exploration of human frailty against the backdrop of historical trauma, where the abyss is always as close as the longing for transformation. Sheds light upon the fatal condition of humankind. Now, this 80-minute ceremony they also awarded the prize for physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine, and the economic science prizes. The Peace Prize is done over in Norway rather than Sweden.
Yes.
But what I really want to talk to you about is the dinner.
I am all here for that. We want to know, because we have lots of foodies. Our waivers are definitely foodies. We want to know what was served, how was it served, and we just want to hear about all the details.
Yeah. So I can tell you that Hong Kong herself was dressed in black and was escorted by Christopher O'Neill, who's the husband of Princess Madeline of Sweden, before sitting down at the main table.
Sure.
But I can also say that not much is known about what goes on in the kitchen beforehand. The event, in fact, tradition has kept this menu a secret until the banquet. So not much can be written about it. This year, reporters Jung Bit-na of Yonhap News was able to get in the kitchen and reported that the chefs were preparing the meal but wasn't able to tell about the menu. It's not a small dinner either. They have about 8 minutes to serve food to the guests, which are about 1,300 people. She even had to sign a waiver saying that she wasn't going to reveal the menu in advance in order to get into the kitchen.
Disclaimer. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, what was found out about, in the kitchen? We need to know the details.
To start out, there are about 40 chefs wearing the typical white uniform and the traditional chef's toque, or the chef hat. And they're busy, very, very busy preparing. It was so busy in there that it was difficult for them to even enter. And as much as I would like to say they got a lot of information about the menu, anytime they asked about it, a menu item, the ingredient was covered up and they said, shh, it's a secret.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So secretive.
They are.
So we don't really know much beforehand. But, now that the banquet has come and gone, it's already happened. I'm sure now we have the details of what was served.
Yes, I did find them. And the list is, well, I'll have you and the listeners tell me if there's anything that you want to try.
Okay, here we go.
It was 3 courses. I think we have photos that'll make it easier to see them.
Oh, is that the first course?
Yeah, appetizer was a goat cheese from the Österland filled with lovage, served with Swedish beets, honey, and quince glaze with roasted pumpkin seed.
I'm all for that. I would definitely enjoy that.
Yeah.
That looks beautiful, by the way, the presentation.
Oh, yeah.
If you're checking out our YouTube channel,
it's
yes.
gorgeous.
Yes. And look at the plating. That beautiful royal blue. Oh, so pretty.
Yeah, there's a long history of this courseware as well.
Yes.
Yeah. For the main course, it was a quenelle of chicken, Swedish legumes, and autumn truffle from Gotland, celeriac glazed with miso on a Swedish broad beans and cabbage banquet, a bouquet with a taste of herbs and apples.
I love the description.
Yeah, for those who aren't fancy, it's basically a fancy chicken meatball. But the way they say it sounds so much better.
Right. Because I was going to say, it just
sounds good.
Right.
And then for dessert, it was a terrine made from caramelized Frida apples, brown butter cake made from tiger nuts, flavored with spruce shoots, cream of quince fruit, and thinly sliced apples with chamomile, served with an ice cream made with pineapple weed, and a punch of liqueur.
I want the dishware. I want the china. So
Forget
jealous.
the food, just bring the china.
I'm in love with what they served all the food on.
Yeah,
so beautiful.
It is really big, really, really beautiful.
Yes,
and the food wasn't the only wasn't the only entertainment. After the meal, there was a performance by Leia, a Swedish singer and songwriter, and as well as a professional dance troupe.
Oh.
And anybody who was interested in watching the broadcast, watching this dinner, they have a broadcast that was done by the Swedish broadcaster SVT, and it is on various social media channels and can be found there.
Well, I'm curious because it's all about 한강 for us here in Korea. So, anything special that was done for her?
I'm not sure they did anything special specifically for her, but since she is the first Korean winner to attend the banquet, Erickson said that it is an event that connects the world as Nobel Prize winners of different nationalities, and they're gathered in one place. The Swedish broadcaster did mention that her work had been blacklisted under a previous presidential administration, and also mentioned the 1980 Gwangju massacre that had characterized her life and became the starting point for her masterpiece, Human Acts. Now, you might be wondering about the former president, Kim Dae-jung, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2000. He did attend the ceremony, but the Peace Prize is awarded in Norway.
Separately, yes.
So they do have a dinner, but it was not the one that was in Sweden.
Interesting. Well, if we can go back to the food real quick.
Yes.
What about the chefs? Are they the same chefs that cook the meal every year?
Well, they actually rotate every year. The dinner is made by a different set of international chefs. The executive chef Gunnar Eriksson, who has been leading the banquet preparations for the past 20 years, said every year as many as 80 people send emails to apply to attend the Nobel Prize banquet. And he added that while most of them are from Stockholm, this year they have chefs from neighboring European countries as well as Canada and Colombia.
Wow.
The staff itself includes 20 chefs, 20 people doing washing up and transporting food, 8 head waiters, 210 servers, 5 wine waiters. And the amount of food itself is impressive. One of the menus back in the 1990s included 2,600 pigeon breasts, 475.
Wait. Back up. Pigeon breasts?
Yeah, it's a squab. It's a,
I see.
Yeah,
Type of bird.
Not the ones that you see out here.
Not the pigeons we see on the street. Okay.
475 lobster tails, 100 kilos of potatoes, among so much weight of other things.
Yes.
I'm not sure how much chicken they used this year, but I'm sure it was a lot.
To make the chicken meatballs, right?
I believe the French was quenelle de poulet.
It sounds so fancy, and I'm sure it's delicious. But we're going to call it a wrap because we're out of time. But we will definitely check in with you next week. Yes?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, everybody. This was Chris talking about what happened at the banquet. And here is 보랏빛 향기 by Kang Soo-ji for our final song as requested by Benny. I'll see you back at 8.
그대 모습은 보랏빛처럼 살며시 다가왔지 예쁜 두 눈에 향기가 어려 잊을 수가 없었네 언제나 우리 웃을 수 있는 아름다운 얘기들을 만들어가요 외로움이 다가와도 그대 슬퍼하지마 답답한 내 마음이 더 아파오잖아 길을 걷다 마주치는 많은 사람들 중에 그대 나에게 사랑을 건네준 사람 그대 모습은 보랏빛처럼 살며시 다가왔지 예쁜 두 눈에 향기가 어려 잊을 수가 없었네
Your Bridge to the World.
다가와도
대한 교통안전. 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
We are
the firefighter duo.
Winter is so dry. Let's prevent fire by keeping these 3 rules. If you take caution, you can prevent a fire.
The number one cause of fire in winter are electric blankets. Take special caution with highly flammable materials such as memory foam, toppers, and bedding.
Number 2, having too many appliances on the power outlet is dangerous. Always unplug all the appliances that you're not currently using.
Number 3, check the heater is off before leaving the house. Leaving it on for an extended period of time can cause a fire.
Let's all take part in preventing fire and have warm and safe winter this year.
Tune into BEFM 부산영어방송 for an emergency broadcast.
This campaign is brought to you by BEFM 부산영어방송.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning, Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded.
What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
It is now 8 o'clock and this is news highlights. Police failed to raid presidential office and receives limited documents. The police attempted to conduct a search and seizure of the presidential office yesterday, but the Presidential Security Service refused to cooperate with the investigation into President Yoon Suk Yeol's alleged insurrection. Officers were in a standoff for nearly 8 hours and ended the raid after Yoon's office voluntarily handed over very limited materials. In the meantime, the Corruption Investigation Office, CIO, police, and the Defense Ministry said yesterday that they launched a joint team to probe into the president's martial law announcements. Prime Minister apologizes over martial law turmoil at National Assembly. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and cabinet ministers apologized yesterday over President Yoon Suk Yeol's declaration of martial law and admitted to procedural errors in the cabinet meeting held before the declaration. During the National Assembly emergency session yesterday, Han said that he only became aware of the plan on the night of the declaration and added that he voiced clear opposition to the plan. In the meantime, former Defense Minister Lee Yong-hyun, who faces insurrection charges, attempted to take his own life while under detention. Korean Air and Asiana form mega carrier as a wrap-up merger. Korean Air and Asiana Airlines are set to finalize their long-awaited merger today after approval from competition authorities in all 13 countries and the European Union. Korean Air has invested 700 billion won in a third-party share issuance by Asiana Airlines. The company also spent an additional 800 billion won yesterday to buy 63.9% of Asiana's shares. With this payment, Asiana will become a subsidiary of Korean Air today, closing a long merger process that began in November of 2020. Unionized railway workers to return to work. Korea Railroad Corporation, or KORAIL, and its unionized workers reached a tentative wage deal yesterday, ending the strike that has lasted nearly a week. The two sides reportedly agreed to freeze executive wages for 2 years and have the executives return this year's increase to fund a wage hike for the union's members. The deal is set to be finalized after a vote by union members. The workers returned to work beginning at 7 p.m. yesterday. Syria rebels burned tomb of Bashar al-Assad's father. Syrian rebel fighters have destroyed the mausoleum of late President Hafez al-Assad, father of ousted President Bashir, following the regime's collapse after 50 years. Meanwhile, Syria's new prime minister said that the alliance that ousted the regime will guarantee the rights of all religious groups and called on the millions who fled the war to return home. The rebel commander, however, said that there will be no pardons for those responsible for torture and killing in Syria's notorious prison system. And this was News Highlights. It's time for Waglwagle.
It is.
Haley's
Hello.
back. So I was looking over some of our messages, people who were talking about things that they used to be good at. A lot of it has to do with like equations and like memorization, I realize.
Right.
Yes?
Memory does fail.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As we age and get older, and we just get, just far, far away from our, especially high school days, right? Yes.
Yeah.
It's a reality.
Am I inching toward my 20th year anniversary reunion? Am I?
Let's
Am
not
I?
count.
Okay.
Yes. We're going to jump into our top story. Several top-ranking generals and commanders who were summoned to the National Assembly for emergency questioning, but the attitude of one particular general is under controversy.
Right. So the National Assembly, they have a live feed into what goes on in the halls via the NATV, 국회방송.
Yes.
And then on Tuesday, this is when a batch of 50 top commanders and generals from the military were summoned for emergency questioning about what happened on the night and morning of martial law. So the meeting lasted well into the evening. It was quite a long session. And then there was a short recess around 8:40 p.m. And on the feed, you see one general remove his boots, cross his legs, and start to play a game on his phone. Right. And then so you see his foot, which is socked, no boots, kind of bobbing up and down in the air. Someone else had to come over, kind of tap him gently. Sir, you're on the cameras. But to be fair, shall we? Because both sides. He was playing the game. He played the game for about 6 minutes. This was during recess, but also didn't realize he was being live streamed. Also, I mean, I never went to the military, but aren't there rules about like code of conduct and especially code of dress when you are in uniform? Because I know
so.
I've heard of and I've seen like reports of civilian complaints to the military about when like a conscript soldier didn't have his hat on outside and people complained about it. So I'm like, I know he's inside, but it's not a private setting. So it's removing a boot allowed.
Plus, didn't you say he's a general?
He's a general.
Just saying.
So anyways, so there has been criticism, especially in any case, is that appropriate, but especially when your entire institution has been summoned to the National Assembly for martial law imposition, the first one in 45 years, and about the military's responsibility.
Yes.
So
what happened?
So at the end of the sessions, a Democratic lawmaker, An Gyubek, he actually pointed to him, had the general stand up and reprimanded him, saying, "Are you out of your mind?" The chairman of the Defense Committee, Song Il-jong of the People Power Party, said he did acknowledge this was during recess, but please keep in mind that the people are watching you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hence the controversy.
Yes.
I mean, we have to keep in mind, like, this is like a moment in Korean history, modern
Right,
history,
right.
where this is like the biggest thing to happen in how many decades. So.
And I also do want to just kind of throw it here because it is very hot news this morning.
Yes.
As I mentioned, the Prime Minister and the ministers who were at the National Assembly yesterday, they all stood up and bowed their head in apology. One minister just kept his seat. So maybe we'll, So there's also that.
Okay. Next, tens of thousands of people took to the streets for protests against or for the impeachment. And the demonstrations are expected to continue this weekend. And this is a free country. And you would think that everyone has the right to the freedom of assembly. That's what we assume. Is this not correct?
But do you? Is the question.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So, well, there's one part. Legally, civil servants, 공무원, public officials, they do have a duty to be politically neutral. And they may be subject to disciplinary action from their workplace if they conduct activities as a member of a political party or do something that really damages this political neutrality in the course of conducting their work. So for them, if they're not on duty, can they participate in a political demonstration? That's kind of a gray area. People tend not to, just to err on the side of caution. So that's 공무원, civil servants. What about employees of public corporations? 공기업 직원. They don't have these rules.
Yes.
However, one public corporation reportedly handed down directives basically telling their employees you're banned from going to political demonstration.
Do we know which organization?
We do. This is 강원랜드, the owner of the casino.
Okay.
This is according to JTBC's exclusive report. So employees of one particular department of 강원랜드, they received this work directive saying that they're banned from participating in political demonstrations as this violates their duty to remain politically neutral. Sidebar, they don't have that duty.
Okay.
The notice came down last Friday, which was a day before the big impeachment protests.
Yes.
And of course the vote. So the employees criticized the notice, saying that they, as employees of public corporations, not civil servants, they don't have to be politically neutral. But then here's another factor that the news site pointed out. The current acting president of 강원랜드 is the actual vice president, 최철규, of the company. He was a presidential senior secretary and also a member of the Yoon Suk Yeol camp while he was president.
There's that link.
So there's that link. The corporation did explain that it wasn't the acting president who wrote the notice and was just from and it's also not an official position of the company, that one department leader drafted and sent this message to his or her employees to suggest that they refrain from political activities at the workplace or attend illegal assemblies. So that's their reasoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on and talk about something entirely different. So there has been this kind of gang massacre in Haiti, IT, which apparently has connections to, and I say this with a question mark, to voodoo?
It does. We're not saying... Okay, let's just get to it. So this happened over the weekend, last weekend. I wanted to get to it earlier, but we had other news to cover. So we're bringing this now. So Haiti, just a bit of background, is overrun by gangs. And that's an understatement. And it has been ever since the president was assassinated back in 2021. We've had multiple segments, interviews and hot clips and Cat's Picks about it. But the government says that now the gangs have crossed the red line after one gang and its leader massacred 180 people. So the gang leader, Mikano Altes, and his associates allegedly killed over 180 elderly residents and women in an impoverished area in the capital city. But as to why the voodoo connection?
Why the voodoo?
This is a 부두교. It's a form of a religion that has roots in Western Africa. It was brought over to the Americas by the slaves. It does have magic and communication with spirits or with the dead. That is a major part of that religion.
Okay.
And this is kind of a vast generalization, but it is widely practiced in Haiti or IT. So the gang leader, his child got very sick, severely ill.
Okay.
He received advice from a voodoo priest that the elderly people in this area were practicing witchcraft to make his child ill.
Hence
Hence, during the course of 3 days, he and his gang members killed at least 184 people, including 127 elderly men and women. And these numbers are according to the United Nations.
Wow.
Mykonos apparently, to kind of send a warning, this is graphic, left the bodies, he mutilated the bodies and left them on the streets. Despite this, well, it has no connection.
Right.
But the child unfortunately passed away.
Oh, no.
So this is a horrible tragedy on every single front. By the way, this latest massacre puts death from gang violence just this year in Haiti at 5,000. 5,000 people. So Haiti currently in a transitional government, it has vowed to find and bring the perpetrators to justice.
My goodness. That's a doozy of a story. Please tell me there's one more and that it's a happy good one.
We have a happy one because once again, wa글와글 underline humanity is horrible, but let's try to turn that around. Good people.
Okay.
Good people are here. This is a season of giving.
Yes.
It's that donation season. People are giving generously, but it's the people that you maybe a stereotype, maybe we're biased, but that you wouldn't expect.
Okay.
That wouldn't necessarily, in our eyes, be in the economic means to give, but they are. So number one, these are local stories. A man in his 60s who lives in Busan, Yeongdo, he came to the local community center in Yeongdo with 5 million won, 500만 won. Said that he doesn't want his name to be published, which is also admirable on its own. I mean, how many times have I posted things on social media of things? But in the process of the center trying to kind of at least find his identity to thank him, they found out he's on basic welfare. Yeah.
And he saved up
5 million won. So it's just been identified by his surname, Mr. Che. Mr. Che says, well, he receives money from the government every month.
Okay.
And because he is on basic welfare, he can use medical services for very, very little.
Okay.
So he says he doesn't really need a lot of money. So he said that he wished the money would go to those who are in need, like him, but unlike him, are kind of outside the system.
Oh.
So, and that's really beautiful that he, a beneficiary of the welfare system, really recognizes how good the system has been for him and wants to help others who are not,
give back,
which is just
amazing.
Also, and it's kind of like need breathing this generosity is kind of the theme. Another man, this time in Saha district, older, he's in his 80s. He came to the local district office, also donated 5 million won, asking that it be used for students in need. So he's not well off either. He saved up this money month by month. He said, I didn't buy what I wanted to eat or what I wanted to wear. And he handed the bills wrapped in newspaper. He said that he's always had this dejection, sadness in his heart for never having received proper education. And he's actually begun learning and studying on his own. Once again, he's in his 80s.
Yes.
And he hoped that the money would help students who are in need but want to pursue their studies.
Wow. Two amazing stories to show you the generosity of people.
There are still good people in the
regardless
world.
of their economic means. Well, thank you so much for ending it on a happy note. We needed that one. And we will definitely check in with you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great day.
All right, back to you, the waivers out there for our traffic and weather. It is now 16 past the hour. Here's your traffic update. There is a single car accident on Hwangryongdaero toward the tunnel right at the Bomnaekgor intersection. Please be aware of that. Also, congestion reported on Chungnyeoldaero from Dongnae High School to the Dongnae intersection. There's also some backup on Chungangdaero from Songgong 3-way intersection to Samjeon intersection. Also looking quite slow on Nakdong-Namno from Gangsa Police Station to Seongsan 3-way intersection. It is currently 3 degrees. We have partially cloudy skies. The daytime high will go up to 11 today here in the Busan area. Also, there is a dry weather special alert in place in our city. Looking across the country, freezing or below freezing temperatures across most of the country with strong winds, bringing down the real field temperatures even more. Rain and snow forecast for Ulleungdo and Dokdo Islets. And this was your traffic and weather. And this is Holly Jolly Christmas by Michael Bublé.
Have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I don't know if there'll be snow, but have a cup of cheer. Have a holly jolly Christmas. And when you walk down the street, say hello to friends you know and everyone you meet. Oh, the mistletoe is hung where you can see. Somebody waits for you. Kiss her once for me. Have a holly jolly Christmas. And in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a holly jolly Christmas this year. Mistletoe is hung where you can see. Somebody waits for you. Kiss her once for me. Have a holly jolly Christmas. And in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a holly jolly Christmas this year.
Yes, listeners. So welcome back. Before we get into our special interview, one last time reviewing some of your responses to the text topic. So we have 윤정 Waver who says, 학창 시절 한자를 참 잘했는데 한자를 다 잊어버렸어요. 다시 한자 공부할까 싶습니다. This has been quite the popular answer. 한자, right? The characters that are so difficult to learn the meaning of, the strokes, how to write them, and like the very deeper meaning of what 한자 is. And I see this. I feel like I've never properly learned it at all. So this might be something that I want to look into as well. And such a common thread I see here. Also, we have another message from 고수 who says 토픽이 학교 다닐 때 배웠던 게 전자과 여서 회로를 만드는 걸 배웠는데 지금 아무것도 기억이 안 나네요. Oh, so there's the common thread I see in all your messages. I learned this, I really did, and then you're out of school. And you do wonder, like, was it all in vain? Did we learn all this for nothing? 2391 Waver who says, 음악과 나와서, 음악과, like Department of Music, they majored in music. 베토벤 심포니 한마디 들려주고 몇 번 교향곡인지 맞추는 시험도 봤어요. Wow. So let me explain. So they majored in music and apparently like one of the profs would play one bar of music and they had to, the students, I'm like so like excited talking about this, they had to figure out where that one bar of music came from. Like, how do you do that with like one bar of music? And finally they write, 그래도 베토벤님 사랑합니다. And they say, I still love Beethoven. I bet you don't love your professor, though. I would not like the professor if my professor made me do that. But that goes to show you the level, the skills of music majors. Pretty amazing. Thank you for all your messages. For now, we're going to get to our special interview. Last week, as we all know, President Yoon Suk Yeol shocked not just the nation, pretty much the whole world by declaring emergency martial law, citing threats from quote-unquote pro-North Korean anti-state forces. Well, many saw this as an attempt to sideline the opposition-controlled parliament and consolidate his power, an act most political scientists are now calling a self-coup d'etat. We are seeing the aftermath unfold daily, but unlike most self-coups, which succeed in over 80% of the cases, Yoon's attempt collapsed within hours due to public outrage and political opposition. Well, this is still making the rounds. It's still our top story here domestically. Let's hear more about self-coups, though. We have invited to the airwaves Joseph Wright, who's a professor of political science at Pennsylvania State University. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, great. It's great to be here.
Yes. First of all, if we can get a working definition of what a self-coup entails, and how does that differ from a tradition or coup d'etat?
Yeah, so all coups involve an attempt to seize executive power and entail an illegal action by the military or civilian personnel to seize that power unconstitutionally. A self-coup, though, is different from other kinds of coups because the person attempting to seize the power illegally is actually the executive, the chief executive, which in the South Korean case is President Yoon. And that person grabs the power illegally from other parts of the government, such as the legislature or the judiciary.
Yes. And then, so if we look at a traditional coup d'etat, Professor, can you kind of get into that? So is the only difference one where you're trying to, I guess, topple yourself versus somebody else?
Yeah, so most coups involve toppling somebody else who has the presidential position or the chief executive of the country. But self-coups are the difference insofar as that person himself, and I think in all cases except for one, it's a him, but that person is actually trying to effectively change the way the government operates by closing down other branches of government illegally.
Yes. And so when we look at these types of self-coups, what are the common strategies used by leaders to execute these self-coups?
Yeah, so coup attempts nearly always involve the military or internal security services such as the police or National Guard or something like that. And so President Yoon's attempt to seize power is thus similar to most coup attempts historically. In this case, the president and defense minister both ordered some soldiers to illegally block the legislature and to clear out the legislature so they couldn't have a chance to vote to overturn President Yoon's martial law declaration.
Yes.
And so first is the involvement of the military. And the second thing is that these things, to be successful, they entail careful coordination ahead of time with key allies. Both civilian elites, so for example, people in his own party would have been nice if would have been more successful if he had support from key party leaders from his own party. Mm-hmm. And certainly all of the higher ups in the military, not just the defense minister. Right. So President Yoon appeared to have left many of his senior military officers in the dark about this.
Yes.
He didn't even have his own legislative leader of his own party behind him, who quickly denounced the self-coup attempt.
Indeed. And so, Professor, you already mentioned some of the factors, but with this particular self-coup with President Yoon, if we can delve a little bit more into why it failed. So you already mentioned that, he didn't have all of his, ducks in line, so they say. So anything else you can add to this?
Yeah, so that hurt his chances from the start. But there are three sort of key actors, I think, that helped foil the coup attempt. First and perhaps most importantly were the protesters, right? They quickly gathered outside the legislature to denounce the coup attempt and even to assist some of the legislators in gaining access to the buildings so they could have a chance to vote to overturn President Yoon's declaration of martial law.
Yes.
Second, I don't want to forget here is that even though the president and defense minister ordered out the military and some soldiers made it to the legislature and attempted to block people from gaining access to the legislature, it's really important that they didn't shoot. Actually, there was no mass violence. There was no widespread bloodshed. And that's really important. And it signals that even today, the military, hopefully in Korea, and certainly the soldiers involved, have a well-established norm of actually not harming their own citizens in their own country. which of course wasn't always the case in past periods of dictatorship in South Korea.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that I think is important to which makes this case a bit different and also tells us why the attempt failed was probably the most important civilian elite is the leader of his own party. And he didn't have that his support, and he quickly denounced it shortly after the declaration of martial law. And so when you don't really have your own party behind you, then it makes it really tough.
Yes, yes. And I also want to focus on this. Self-coups do seem to be more common in modern history recently, or maybe it's because we just have better access to all the news. So maybe if you can tell us what some of the global trends are regarding these self-coups, is it just our imagination, or are they happening more frequently?
Yeah, so actually they have become more frequent.
Okay.
And in the past decade, to be specific, and I think there's two reasons for this. One possibility is that I think that democratic countries, particularly the United States and some of their allies, are actually less likely to punish countries when they experience a self-coup, any kind of coup for that matter. Certainly compared to 20 or 25 years ago. And how do they punish people? Well, it used to be that they would withdraw foreign aid or trade benefits when a country had a successful coup. And that sort of norm or that expectation would deter potential coup plotters from actually pursuing their agenda to try to seize power illegally.
Yes.
So that's one trend is I think there's less enforcement by Western powers and they're more ambivalent towards coups now. And secondly, political parties are particularly in democracies, are now actually much more likely than they were in the past decades to be controlled by an individual leader, by the leader of the party, and leader of the country. What I mean by that, what we call a personalist party, is that these parties tend to have elites where the senior elites in those parties are not likely, they're very loyal to the leader himself and not to the constitution, not to the country, not even to the party itself, but actually to the leader. And therefore they're willing to excuse or go along with an attempt by that leader to grab power in a self-coup.
Yes.
So probably the first check that any president or prime minister faces on a self-coup is members of their own party. And when that party says, okay, yeah, I'm okay with this, then that becomes problematic. And when those And we're increasingly seeing parties like that, where elites in the parties are just loyalists and they're not selected for their competence, not selected because they have experience, but selected primarily because they're loyal to the individual leader himself.
Well, Professor, you already mentioned at least one part of our next question, the public outcry, the resistance, the protesters. That was a major factor. Plus, there was, international condemnation regarding this particular, declaration of martial law. But do these two factors, public resistance and also international condemnation, do they play important roles in stopping self-coups?
Yeah, well, certainly, and most importantly, is nonviolent protest. That's the reason is that most of these coup attempts, and as we saw in this just this past week in South Korea, involve men with guns, right? Armed men with guns, whether they're the police or the internal intelligence agents or the military itself. And so when protesters come out, a lot of these people that have the guns aren't actually trained and don't want to kill citizens in their own country.
Sure.
And so if there's no resistance from the citizens, then those militaries are much more likely to go along with the coup. The armed groups are much more likely to do that. But when the citizens resist and they come out in a large protest, it's particularly when it's nonviolent, then the military is more likely to back down and side with democracy rather than to side with the leader. So that's certainly very, very important. International condemnation matters, but it only matters if the international actor has the ability to punish whoever executes the coup. So, while I don't know what the United States response was, or I can't remember offhand what it was, but if the United States simply condemns the coup, that may not actually matter that much. If the United States is not willing to threaten to withdraw some sort of trade deal with Korea.
I see. And when we talk about the military, being, obviously armed, And the nature of most militaries is, you take the orders come from the top and they trickle down. And there was one example of, a particular soldier who, after the failed coup, actually publicly, bowed his head and seemingly apologizing to the public. I'm not trying to take away from the military and maybe the higher ups of the military, but oftentimes, the lower ranking soldiers, they don't really have a choice but to follow what their commanders order. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's why, while they're not trained to kill people in their own country, their own citizens, they're trained to follow orders. And they're very good at following orders. And that's why it's so important, if you're trying to have a coup, to get the support of the senior military elites, because those are the ones that give the orders.
Yes.
And then those elites tend to follow the orders. And so coordinating amongst the senior officers is incredibly, incredibly important for a successful coup attempt. And clearly President Yoon didn't seem to have done that in this case, which largely contributed to its failure. Said,
yes.
Even though soldiers are trained to follow orders, soldiers also know in democracies that there is the rule of law, and some orders are illegal. And certainly killing citizens in your own country tends to be illegal in most democracies. And so individual soldiers have a right to decline or to stand down and to not shoot to kill unarmed protesters, even if they're given the orders to do that. And that's actually really helpful. That's what democracies establish, those norms, not just for the senior elites in the military, but also for the rank and file.
Indeed, indeed. Well, as we're talking about democracies right now, Professor, as we wrap up our discussion today, how can democracies, especially here in South Korea, how can we build, even more resilience against something like this from happening again, another type of self-coup? What would you say?
Yeah, so again, look at those two key actors, protesters and the military. The governments need to let civil society groups, particularly groups that are good at organizing, like labor unions, and certainly the role here in the South Korean events. They need to be able to organize so they can orchestrate nonviolent protests that are the key to defeating self-coups. And then secondly, those militaries should remain independent of the ruling party and, most importantly, independent of the leader of the country. So they're not filled with commanders who will give orders to shoot to kill their own citizens.
Well, I do want to thank you so much for your expertise and insight into this very hot topic here in Korea. Thanks for joining us today, Professor.
Pleasure. Thanks.
This was Professor Joseph Wright, and we talked about self-coups in general, and in particular, what happened. It seems like ages ago, but it was literally last week. Well, we are going to take a little breather, so here we are. This is 사랑은 향기를 남기고 by Tay.
가슴 아파서 목이 메어서 안간 힘을 써봐도 피해갈수록 물러지지도 않는 이별인가봐. 너무 놀라서 자꾸 겁나서 웃음으로 이기려 해도 눈치 빠른 눈물이 더 먼저 알고 말라. 소란스레 사랑했나봐. 널 줬다 이래 뺏는 걸 보니 문 넘친 행복을 또 시기했나봐. 널 보내야만 하나봐. I miss the love that I share with you. 온 세상을 취한 것 같아. 눈부셨던 우리 추억이 널 오래는 빛을 대잖아. 네 품에 살았던 날들과 꿈꾸었던 사랑이 다 부서져 또 흩어져 향기로. I can't live without your love. 내가 몰라서 잡지 못해서 돌아갔음 좋아도 지워지지도 떨어지지도 않는 사랑인가 봐 네가 미워서 누굴 만나서 다시 시작해보려 해도 수많은 네 그리움이 날 체하게 만들어 넌 나보다 더 용감한가 봐날 사랑한 적 없던 것처럼 잘 살아가는데 날 지워가는데 난 왜 날 못 잊는 거니 I miss the love that I share with you 온 세상이 취한 것 같아 눈부셨던 우리 추억이 널 오래된 빛을 대잖아 네 품에 살았던 날들과 꿈꾸었던 사랑이 다 부서져 또 흩어져 향기로 이렇게 하루 이틀이 가고 눈에 멀어져 살다가 보면 언젠간 또 가슴에 써도 무뎌지는 거라고 그렇게 말을 하기까지 얼마나 싸워야 난 알지 보이지 않는 나와 또 볼 수 없는 널 앞에 두고 I miss the love that I share with you 언제쯤 자유로울까 이별도 못한 게 있어 내 안에 널 데려가는 난 그래 괜찮아 오늘도 너 때문에 힘겨워도 이 지독한 내 아픔도 우리가 사랑한 흔적인걸
Get your local up-to-date news from Korea and abroad right here on Morning Wave in Busan with Catherine. Stay tuned.
It is now time for Stephanie and City Insights. Good morning. Hey, so I want to ask you before we get into our insights about something that you used to be good at back in school, and then you're like, what is that? Or like, I just don't remember.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I have a good one.
Okay, what is it?
So when I was a freshman in high school, we had a very good-looking French teacher. He was so good-looking. I mean, he had
Do you remember his name?
No, I don't.
Oh,
It was so long ago.
Okay.
But also his, French accent. Bonjour.
I can tell by your body language. He's like...
And very tall, so I was like, wow. So I took French, and I studied really hard.
I wonder why.
But now, all I know is bonjour, je m'appelle Stephanie. That's literally all I know.
Literally?
Yeah, I don't remember anything.
But you got an A in that class, right?
Yes, of course. I studied so hard. And
we all have those classes.
Yes.
Memories.
Good
All right.
days.
Well, we're going to jump into our first insight. What do you have for us?
All right, so our first insight takes us on a journey through Busan with a recently published book titled Mamama Busan by novelist Baek Nam. Born and raised in Busan, the author captures the city's authentic stories, blending humor and history. And this book is a sequel to his earlier work titled Ha 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 Busan, released 5 years ago. Now, I really like the title Mamama Busan.
Is that really how it's supposed to be read? I'm just asking.
Don't question me.
Okay. Is this
사투리, please.
그냥 마마마 부산?
Or
인가요?
Mama Busan.
I'm just asking.
I'm tearing up.
I'm
It's
just
too funny
wondering
here.
if that's how it's supposed to be read. But okay.
I should have researched, but it's, I think Ma Busan. Now, Ma is such a quintessential Busan expression, isn't it? And that brings me to a fun question for you, Catherine, and listeners. How many meanings do you think the expression ma has?
That's a tough one.
I know. So I have options.
Okay, so multiple choice.
So
yes.
A.
Okay.
One.
One.
B. Two meanings. C. Too many to count.
I'm gonna go with C because the title said ma. What? We're the most un-Busanite people. The two of us.
Ma. How's that, PD님? She won't even look at us.
She won't even like make eye contact with us. She's shaking her head like she's doing 도리도리.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're trying.
Yes.
We're trying. Well, according to the author of the book, 마마마 부산, the expression ma carries countless meanings. It's not just a simple word. So let's take a listen.
첫 번째 마는 우리가 일반적으로 잘 알고 있는 것처럼 하지 마라, 남을 나무라는 의미에서 마의 의미가 있습니다. 거기에 이제 고마마 이렇게 할 때 얘기하는 마라고 할게요. 이건 보통 이제 사직 야구장에서 상대팀 선수가 일루에 있는 우리 편 주자한테 견제를 했을 때 응원석에서 마 하고 외치는 거하고 같은 의미입니다. 그 목차에 보면 일부에 마 거가 하는 제목이 있는데요. 이때 마는 그냥 어떤 말을 하기 위해서 잠시 뜸을 들이는, 잠시 쉬어가는 의미로서의 마도 있고요. 부산 사람들이 잘 기억하고 있는 1984년도에 롯데가 우승할 때 그때 팔이 거의 부서질 정도로 아픈 상태였는데 최동원 선수가 고민을 하다 이렇게 말합니다. 함 해봅시다. 그때 점점점 마의 의미는 정말 굉장한 겁니다. 인간의 고뇌가 담기면서도 자신이 짊어진 책임감을 당당하게 받아들이는 그런 정신입니다.
Right, so Mr.
I love his voice and the way he speaks. I have to say, I'm just saying.
And he's just so good at 사투리 too.
Right, okay.
So he explained that the ma in 마마마 부산 carries multiple meanings. The first ma refers to its common usage as in like 하지 마라, right? Like don't do it in a scolding tone. It's also what fans might shout at Sajik Baseball Stadium when an opposing player attempts to pick off a runner on first base, shouting 1, 2, 3. Ma. Oh, Catherine. We have to say ma together, all together in unison. 1, 2, 3. Ma. Yes, very good.
Okay.
Also, to this scolding tone, ma also serves another purpose. So, for example, the first chapter in the book is titled Ma, 그가 거가. Sorry, ma, 거가, right? Where ma acts as a conversational pause, a momentary hesitation before speaking further. He also shared another significant use of ma tied to a historical moment in 1984 when Lotte won the championship. And pitcher Choi Dong-won, as we know, who had already pitched through pain, said, ma, 함해 보입시다, right? And that ma, ... conveyed a human struggle, a sense of duty, and a fighting spirit. And also, as we know in Busan, expression like 확 마, right?
You gotta do it with this, the
확 마.
For the raising of
are often used in anger. And in that case, ma conveys like a conditional meaning. It's like, oh, if you don't listen to me, right? 확 마.
I have a message from Leslie who says, we use ma as an informal version of mom.
Oh.
Like you know, ma, pa.
Yeah, ma,
right.
pa, of course.
So
it's a different feel though, right?
Yes. Who said mapadubu?
Mapadubu?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Is this from our producer?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. We're ignoring her.
Yeah, what?
못 보겠어요. Okay. So, let's go back to the title of Ma Busan.
Ma Busan.
Yes. So what makes this book stand out from other works about Busan?
Right. So in the book, we get a glimpse into 3 fascinating villages in our city. 칠한마을, 소망마을, and 안창마을.
Okay.
Have you been to any of these villages in Busan?
I'll be honest. No, I'm not gonna lie on air.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of them I didn't really know about it until I was studying into this.
Okay.
These are not your typical tourist spots. These villages all share one thing in common: the worrying decline of their younger population, with older residents becoming more prevalent. Yet, despite the challenges they face, these villages hold incredible stories and charm that are worth preserving. For example, Anchang Village, where early migrants to Busan built their homes deep in the mountains due to shortage of housing, creates a distant shape resembling a shoe insole, and that's in Korean Anchang, so that's why it's called Anchangma을.
Really? Okay, the insole. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Yes. And as we reflect on these stories from Ma Busan, it's easy to see how living in Busan can sometimes kind of make us forget how much we still don't know about our own city.
Right. Now, Mr. Baekil-nam, the author of the book, suggests suggests that in order to deepen our appreciation for the city, it might just take a shift in perspective by taking a moment to reflect on the familiar spaces around us and understanding their deeper meanings. We can really develop a greater love for our lovely city of Busan.
Indeed. This was so interesting. And all I see on our board right now are lots of kuku. Like from everybody's kuku. Like,
do you think they're laughing about
They're laughing at
mapadubu?
us. They're laughing
okay,
about
okay.
us and us ignoring our producer with the mapadubu. Yes. Let's move on to our second insight, though. What's this one about?
Yes, so our second insight is on the 2024 Degree Show, a vibrant exhibition for young artists in Busan. It's taking place right now at Seokcheon Hall in F1963, and it will run until tomorrow.
Ooh, well, we want to know about this because I'm like, degree?
Right.
Like, what kind of show is this? Like,
so Degree Show combines degree symbolizing academic graduation and show representing an exhibition. So it's to create large-scale exhibition for young artists graduating from university. But unlike typical graduation shows confined to campuses, this initiative led by professors aimed to introduce new artists to the public.
Yes.
And this year, the exhibition shifts to a competition for young artists under the theme Beyond the Season of Crisis, which is a perfect theme for right now in this country, offering them a platform to display their works and keep all proceeds from sales.
Oh, nice. So, what works can visitors expect at this exhibition?
So the exhibition features a diverse range of artworks by emerging artists, including soon-to-be graduates, graduate students, and young artists who graduated within the past 3 years.
Okay.
Visitors can enjoy modern art in forms such as Western painting, Korean paintings, sculptures, as well as works in design and media art. Last week, I met with Mr. Lee Sang-ho, the chair of the Degree Show, and also he is the dean of the College of Fine Arts at Gyeongsang University. And I asked him to share with me specific works that we can expect to see if we visit the exhibition. So let's take a listen.
전시장에 딱 들어가시면은 첫 번째 만날 수 있는 작품이 김주은이라는 작가의 얼굴이거든요. 굉장히 강렬하게 관람자의 시선을 끄는 그런 작품입니다. 그리고 안으로 쭉 들어가면 다양한 조각 작품도 있고 많이 보기 힘든 행위 예술까지도 준비가 되어 있습니다. 그래서 굉장히 흥미롭게 다양한 작품들을 볼 수 있다는 그런 특징이 있겠습니다.
So Mr. Lee Sang-ho mentioned that the first artwork visitors will encounter is by artist Kim Ju-eun, titled 얼굴 or Face.
Okay.
It's a bold piece sure to capture everyone's attention. And as you enter the exhibition, you'll find a variety of sculptures and even performance art, which is rare in Korea. And there will be a diverse range of art for visitors to enjoy.
Ah, yes, yes. So it sounds really fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're really featuring the young artists, the recent graduates from not just, this year, but the past 3 years.
Absolutely.
So,
through collaborations with local galleries and art fairs, they are helping these artists get their start on a global stage. And Professor Lee Sang-ho shared with me that on the day of the opening ceremony, they already sold multiple paintings.
Oh.
They got some of these students in contact with the galleries. So I think this is really helpful for the students. And also for listeners, if you're interested, check out the 2024 Degree Show going on until tomorrow at Seokcheon Hall of F1963. It is free of charge.
I love this, the fact that we're being more supportive of our local artists, because that whole adage like starving artists. We don't want our young artists to be starving and having to turn to other work to support themselves. In order to support their art, we want them to flourish, and hopefully this will help. Well, thank you so much for a very entertaining City Insights today. And of course, we'll check in with you next week. Thank you, Stephanie.
I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
All right. So today we talked about a variety of issues, including, of course, the biggest, heaviest news. We talked about all the woggle stories. And we, of course, also had fun with City Insights, talking lovingly about Busan dialect. So keep in mind, even though I'm very bad at Busan dialect, I was actually born in Busan. I am a true Busanite that cannot speak the 사투리. but it's because I left when I was a baby. And as for you, I hope that you are able to enjoy the most of our season. As we mentioned earlier also, this is a season of giving as well. So maybe if you haven't, or maybe you've been thinking about it but haven't gone around to doing so, we are smack in the middle of December, almost there. So this is a season of giving, loving, and just being around those who you really care about, and hopefully we can do our part in showing to other citizens, other people, that we care about them. So hopefully we can have a warm December, because so far it's been a pretty terrible and dark week or so, right? And hence, trying to wear brighter colors to lift your mood because it's been so dark. But hopefully there will be light, as the professor said in our special interview about people actually showing up as well, non-violent protests. Final song for today, 와글와글 by 강산에. So here it is. Enjoy. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.
Tu a grano, ni tu agresando, tu a grano, ni tu agresando, tu a grano, ni tu agresando.
부산영어방송